Breakdown of the fourth tradition. Autonomy. Each group must be autonomous, except in matters that affect other groups or Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole. Autonomy, in general terms, is the condition, the state, the capacity for self-government or a certain degree of independence. Some synonyms of autonomy would be sovereignty, self-government, independence, emancipation, and authority, while the antonyms are dependence and subordination. Within the community of Alcoholics Anonymous, we manage our own affairs as best suits us. In current years, there have been various currents that have emerged through the AA program, which has been used in some cases to help people with other types of issues different from alcohol and drugs, such as emotional and personality situations. They simply seek to help others through the program. However, there are other types of people who are individualistic, driven by their selfish ambitions, who have used the program to gain money, prestige, and power over others. This is very unfortunate, as people often think that this is the Alcoholics Anonymous program. We do not seek to enter into controversies, but rather to speak about the reality that exists today. Let us suppose that an individual opens a group with the purpose of helping people, but the protagonism and power over others begins to take over. Undoubtedly, it can be a growing pain if they assert themselves within the program. If this is not the case, they will begin to want to impose their ideas on others. They will begin to be authoritarian, and therefore, the people who come to that group will leave resentful not with the individual or with the group of people, but with the program, as sometimes it is thought that this is how all AA groups will be. And this is where the misinformation about Alcoholics Anonymous is distorted. That is why we will make it clear that the fact that various currents use the Alcoholics Anonymous program to recover does not mean that they are AA groups. Let us remember what the first tradition states. If the group does not survive, it will be null or very difficult for the individual to survive. But here it would be good to emphasize what an AA group is. An Alcoholics Anonymous group is whenever 2 or 3 alcoholics meet in the interest of sobriety. They may call themselves an AA group, provided that as a group they have no other affiliation. Clearly, this meant that we had been granted the value of recognizing each AA group as an individual entity, exclusively dependent on its own conscience to guide its actions. This opens the door for us to see the magic of the autonomy of each spiritual entity that the groups are, where they are free to conduct themselves in the best way that their conscience deems. Let us remember that each group has different needs. That is why it would be absurd to want or try to implement standards or autonomies for all groups in general. Let's take a simple example to understand this. In Mexico City, all people's work begins at 8 a.m. and commonly ends at 6 p.m. That is why groups decide to have their session hours from 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. This schedule is not decided by one person, but by the entire consciousness that belongs to the group, which makes it an autonomy. However, this autonomy could not be functional in a provincial place where they have different customs and habits regarding work hours. And perhaps the provincial group decides to start their session hours from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., as this schedule suits their consciousness better. An Alcoholics Anonymous group should not do anything that could cause great harm to Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole, nor should it affiliate with anything or anyone. There would be a great danger in trying to stereotype certain groups, as we remember that there are no first or second-class alcoholics. There are no people who are above others. However, at the moment of practice, this can be distorted, thinking that one person is right and makes decisions for others. After many years of debate, we realize that the problem is not that one person wants to impose themselves on others. The real problem is that the consciousness allows it. If the Alcoholics Anonymous group did not maintain its course, it would be lost irretrievably. Its only objective is to achieve sobriety and help others who have not obtained it. In all other aspects, it had complete freedom to decide and act. Each group has the right to make mistakes. There are many members within AA who are too demanding and intolerant of the small faults that may occur within an Alcoholics Anonymous group. However, we must feel compassion for these individuals who lack recovery. Autonomies are the agreements that are regularly carried out within the work meetings and are voted on democratically in the group. Of course, there will always be completely different points of view, and there may be minorities in the group that oppose certain autonomies and agreements that are carried out in the group. Let us remember that there are times when even the same consciousness can be wrong in making certain decisions. In these cases, we must unite around certain autonomies and let time be our best judge to know if we were in error or right. Alcoholics are bankrupt entrepreneurs. We have great ideas, great expectations about ourselves and others. However, reality is different. These great ideas sometimes even go against the well-being of others, and that is when it can affect the group. When Alcoholics Anonymous was still in its infancy, many very enthusiastic groups began to form. We will narrate a certain experience to understand this tradition. In a certain town, a particularly energetic group emerged. The people of the town were also excited about the matter. The elders, carried away by their fantasy, dreamed of ambitious innovations. They thought that the town needed a great center for alcoholism, a kind of pilot project that would serve as a model for doubles everywhere. On the ground floor, they would have a club. On the first floor, the drunks would be detoxified and given money to pay their overdue debts. The third floor would be dedicated to an educational center free from all kinds of controversies. Of course, in their fantasies, the shining building would have several more floors, but to start 3 would be enough. All this would mean spending a lot of money from other people. No matter how hard it is to believe, the rich people of the town thought it was a fabulous idea. However, among the alcoholics, there were a few conservative dissenters. These dissenters wrote to the Alcoholic Foundation to see if they thought this type of innovation was advisable. They had learned that the elders, to hammer things home, were about to request the foundation to grant them a charter. These few dissenters felt bewildered and skeptical. Naturally, there was no lack of a promoter in this matter, a super promoter who with his eloquence calmed all fears. Despite the foundation's advice that it could not grant such a constitutional charter and that all the businesses that in the past had mixed a group of AA with medicine and education had ended badly, among other places, to reduce risks, the promoter organized 3 corporations and became president of all of them. Freshly painted, the new center shone. Its warm atmosphere quickly spread throughout the town. Very soon, everything began to work wonderfully. To ensure continuous and infallible operation, 61 rules and regulations were adopted. However, this brilliant prospect soon became overshadowed. Confusion replaced action. It was discovered that some drunks longed to educate themselves, but did not doubt that they were alcoholics. Perhaps the personality defects of some others could be cured with a loan. Some were excited about the idea of the club, but for them, it was a matter of remedying their emotional deficiencies. Sometimes, the crowd of candidates passed through the 3 floors. Some started at the top and went down to the ground floor to become members of the club. Others started in the club and after getting drunk, entered the detoxification floor and then ascended to the 3rd floor to educate themselves. A group of AA, as such, was simply incapable of taking on such a project. This was discovered too late. Then the inevitable explosion occurred. The group found itself enveloped in a cold and oppressive cloud of fear and frustration. When it dissipated, something wonderful had happened. The main promoter wrote a letter to the foundation's office saying that he wished he had paid more attention to the experience of AA. Then he did what would become something classic of AA. Everything fit on a postcard-sized card. On the cover, it said, Rule number 62. Upon unfolding the card, a single biting phrase jumped out. Don't take yourself so seriously, man. In this way, a group of Alcoholics Anonymous, under the protection of the 4th tradition, had exercised its right to make mistakes. Furthermore, it had provided a great service to AA by being humbly willing to apply the lessons it had learned. This wonderful experience shows us how far we can go with our grandiloquence that we sometimes have in our thoughts. Today, we know why many groups disband, and there is simply indolence and strife in each of them. And until today, the answer is simple. The lack of knowledge of the traditions, and secondly, and no less important, the practice of the traditions. Ignorance leads us to sordid and dark places where we cannot see the light of reason. The problems that occur in AA groups are sometimes wanted to be solved with the opinions of others, and not with the foundations and principles that are already established in the traditions, which have been forged in painful experiences. Today, we know that we have the right to make mistakes, and it is most likely that our journey and development in Alcoholics Anonymous will involve this. No one is exempt from this type of situation. However, it is valid to make mistakes. We cannot demonize and much less judge our peers. Let us rather help them understand the principle. Far from criticizing other currents, let us provide guidance to safeguard our community. Let us stop seeing who is better than another. This egocentric attitude is what has completely annihilated the AA community. Autonomy is the essence for the functioning of an Alcoholics Anonymous group, and we have the freedom to act for the good not only of a few, but of all of us who make up the group. Thank you for joining us on this spiritual journey toward recovery. If you have found value in our content and would like to continue exploring topics related to Alcoholics Anonymous and personal transformation, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications to receive alerts for our new videos. Together, we can build a community of support and hope. Until next time, and take care.